So allow me to introduce myself. I'm Ivy Wong from representing RIMAS, Risk Insurance Management Association of Singapore, and I'm also Senior Director of CS Intelligence, a cybersecurity defense company. I'm very privileged to be here together with our panelists, and my objective today in this I only have a short 30 minutes, but my objective is to draw out their experience, their industry experience, and their knowledge to share with everybody. And without further ado, let me introduce from the extreme left, Pramod Rai, co-founder of Cyber Sirius. Insuretech is an Insuretech startup funded by Leo Capital, Credit Saison. It works and prominent angels from the industry. Pramod has worked in technology with technology teams in Barclays Investment Bank startups over the last decade, and is an active angel investor in over 30 companies globally. So let us welcome Pramod. All right, and next I have Justin, right, Head of Treaty Singapore at Reinsurance Advisors and Brokers, Guy Carpenter, with Guy Carpenter for just over 4 years, and has previously worked across strategy and reinsurance in property and life insurance. He has a particular interest in emerging risks and solutions that can be delivered to customers including cyber. And next we have Struan, yes, Struan. So sorry about that. Struan, co-founder of Pandematics UW, holds overall responsibility for Pandematics insurance portfolio and Insuretech developments. Through his 15 years of career, he has serviced a diverse portfolio of entities through Europe, APAC, Middle East, and North America with their cyber finance lines, tech PI, media and intellectual property insurance risks and management needs. And on my right, we have Timothy Grange, Chief Revenue Officer at Blackpanda, overseeing the development of group activity which includes cyber risk advisory, incident response, digital forensics, loss adjusting, and insurance services. With over 20 years of experience in the insurance industry, he has held risk consulting roles, and over the last 15 years, including 10 years in APAC, Managing Director, leading special risk management and loss adjusting firm. Wow, that's very mouthful for me.
Good job.
Thank you so much. So thank you guys. Today we have this huge topic, right? Can the best defense beat the best offense? In the last 1.5 years to 2 years, we hear this, the word defense coming up. The gone are the days that we're just looking at protecting. We're looking at something that's proactive. So let's start off with offense. I just want to hear from the panelists. What is this offense that's happening in this times right now? So maybe Pramod, what is the current state of vulnerabilities in the technology stacks?
Okay, so every company that has a tech team or that's using tech is actually building on a stack that is open source and some part of it is proprietary. And a lot of these have vulnerabilities. So it's accurate to say that every company has vulnerabilities in their tech stack. What we are seeing now is that on the other side, the folks that are attacking these companies, they can be a teenager that is sitting in someone's house, in his parents' house, or it can be all the way up to a nation state that has dedicated resources that's going after you, right? So the vulnerabilities are open, they are growing, because tech companies want to prioritize go-to-market, we want to ship things, we have most of us are aware of how fast we want to get things done. In that process, actually, we are putting security in a priority that is second. This is still happening today. Even though the awareness is growing in the market, all these hacks are becoming more and more publicly known, the state of vulnerability is quite bad in the industry.
Thank you. And anyone else would like to share? What are some of the defense, from your perspective? We have Tim from the forensics. What are some of the cases that you're seeing?
So obviously, during the past 2 years, we've been hit by a massive wave of ransomware. And I think this was clearly one of the key threats, especially for the insurance industry. Some players have been pretty badly hit by ransomware, which can create ultimately large business interruption claims. So I would say business email compromise and fraudulent transfer is something that we have seen a lot, so which is more related to crime. The ransomware wave obviously was very, very significant. And we see also on a regular basis data breach making the news, maybe not always in the APAC region where, you know, the mandatory notification is not yet here in every territories and so on, but the impact of data breach is also starting to be very significant for the industry.
Thank you. And you know, you're in the topic of ransomware, right? And 31st November on Straits Time, the title saying that insurers shy away from ransomware cover as losses mount. I just want to hear, you know, from the reinsurance guys in this space, why is this happening?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question around ransomware. Ransomware really came into focus for insurers and reinsurers over the last 18 to 24 months. And I think the first issue to think about is not only the private actors involved in ransomware, but the state actors involved in ransomware. I think that's a number one consideration when we think about the availability of insurance or reinsurance capacity. The second issue would be around the systemic nature of ransomware. And that is obviously becoming a larger concern for the industry. It's becoming a larger concern for regulators. And then the third piece that's really come into focus for us at Guy Carpenter is around ransomware and its impact not only on the cyber policy, but other lines of business. So where there's been privacy breaches, where there's been issues around risk management that are faced into by boards of directors and senior management, and how that impacts other covers. So there's certainly issues playing out with ransomware at the moment. I'm sure Strawn has some different views around across the market around capacity, but ransomware is a major concern for us. And then the final point I'd make is that we used to think of the SME segment and the personal line segment of cyber as a good diversifier of risk associated with ransomware in the cyber product. Our view today is that that doesn't exist. And I think that's been proven over the past 12 months, and I think will become a larger issue for the industry as we further digitalise, as we think about some of the capacity crunches, and as we have to think about the public-private partnerships that will need to take place.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, I might just jump in to give a bit more information about the insurance market's views on it, at least from an underwriting perspective. So what we have seen in the space has been the ransomware attacks have hit everyone and anyone in various different market spaces. Insurers have really struggled to deal with that. So the way the insurance market has tried to address that has been lift prices, limit coverage, capacity is pulled out of certain marketplaces. And Asia has unfortunately been relatively hard hit there, without it being that there's been substantial losses to the insurers. So I'm not saying there haven't been losses to the insurers, because there have, but it has been a slightly different ball game to what has been happening elsewhere in the world. So what we're seeing now is a slightly different approach on the underwriting side about how to address ransomware. Some insurers have gone, okay, we're going to sublimit that area of coverage. We haven't taken that approach, and this isn't to big note ourselves, but we are a new player, so it's a slightly different ball game for us, as I've said. But what really has happened has been less interest from insurance markets to be able to write those risks and provide cyber insurance capital at all. So it's an interesting time to see what the insurance market does to address that moving forward.
Well, thank you, thank you. So coming back to the main topic, this can the best defense beat the best offense? What are your thoughts?
Well, short answer, no, unfortunately. However, I mean, there is two axes to measure a risk. One is likelihood, and one is severity. And I think we do have tools to act on those two axes. On the likelihood, to supplement what Justin said, and to take the example of a ransomware, I think a lot of SME consider in the past I won't be a target. I'm not a target to a ransomware attack. Nobody wants to target me. Actually, what we need to understand is that you don't need necessarily to be a target to be a victim. There is a large number of hackers use scanning, and they're scanning thousands and thousands of domain names every day in order to detect potential opportunities and entry doors. And to come back to the likelihood, there is tools today in order to reduce your attack surface, or at least there is a principle, security principle, which is security through obscurity. And actually, you could potentially hide some critical information around your system, around your port, around the configuration that you have, which will provide less information to the hacker, and you will be a less juicy or sexy fruit for the hacker, I would say. And after you have, of course, the severity aspect, to work on the impact. Insurance is obviously a very strong tool to transfer the risk. There is additional protection measures to have a good backup policy. If you're hit by a ransomware, you can just reinstall a previous backup, etc., etc. So we have a lot of tools to use, but there is no magic pills, there is no magic solutions.
So it sounds like in this cyber pandemic, it's virtually impossible to evade an offense, it sounds like, right?
Ivy,
so,
can I give an example?
Please.
There's a very good point that you raised. Yep. I think the severity of this can be noted by the fact that of a real case study that I'd like to share with you. This is a SME owner that wanted to digitize, read a MongoDB tutorial online, downloaded MongoDB, used the standard port, and within 9 minutes got hacked. 9 minutes. So, I mean, he has no chance. He's just trying to figure out how to use MongoDB. So you know, the offense-defense question, I think, is a very clear answer to that. And there are many, many, many such examples here. So, you know, we have a side of the industry that thinks that, oh, we are not going to get hacked. We are not attractive enough as targets, right? And then you have another side of the industry that has just automated the hacking process. So this is what we are dealing with.
Thank you, Pramod. So, I mean, really, it sounds like, you know, in this cyber pandemic, it's just impossible to circumvent a defense, right? So, Struan, I have this question for you. If companies have taken, increased their cyber insurance to recoup losses, but what role are we seeing cyber insurance company play in for SMEs in Asia?
So, I think we've obviously got experts in the field of cybersecurity who are putting in time, effort, money to make sure that businesses are well protected across the region. Unfortunately, as you've just heard from two of the experts in that space, it's inherent that there's still going to be losses. There's scattergun approaches from hackers all over the place. There's losses to all sorts of businesses, from SMEs to the large corporates. So the insurance market has always sat there as the safety net or the last resort. I think the fact that there are so many insurers who are still playing despite having losses in that space shows that there is still value in that, and there is a need for that defense at the end, because realistically there is no way to be completely secure for any business. We focus primarily on the SME segment, so we do look at businesses with revenue below 250 million, and to go and see those businesses, you really help them with their cyber risk journey by giving them pre-breach services, advice, solutions to try and get them to a better position. But ultimately, you are still sitting there at the end of it going, we are going to sell you an insurance policy if you want it, because realistically, you're probably going to need it at some point in time. It might not happen today, it might not happen tomorrow. You might have already found out throughout this process that you have been breached, or you have an incident, or you have dwell time that's already counting far further than it would in any other territory. And ultimately, cyber insurance is there to add that last layer of protection. I don't know that the insurance market has got it 100% right just yet. It is.
Your attention, please. The fire alarm in the building has been activated.
It is something that we are focusing on trying to address in a slightly different manner. So we have changed the way that our incident response panel deals with breaches, knowing that we need to make sure these businesses are back up and running as quickly as possible, because it is regular. It does happen all the time.
Anyone else?
Sorry, I think, Strawn, you made a very good observation there. You referred to your incident response panel. You didn't refer to claims management or the claim. And I think that is a very important consideration, not only for consumers, but ensuring that the insurers have that in the product. And of course, from a reinsurer perspective, it's very important. When we talk about incident response, we more or less compare the two generic processes. So a claim today is notified to the insurer, the claims manager and the insurer gets involved, or the loss adjuster gets involved, or the lawyers get involved. I think when we talk about incident response or a cyber incident response, it's about the policyholder coming to the insurer and working with the insurer around a problem that's emerged from a variety of perspectives. From a legal perspective, from an assessment perspective, from a reputation perspective, as some examples. And of course, that's an important issue for the reinsurance market to understand. When we talk about the incident, what philosophy does the insurer have in place to help manage the total cost of that incident and to get the business that is impacted by the cyber incident back up and running as soon as possible. So I think that's an important distinction we need to make in relation to this particular proposition.
Thank you. Yep. So, what are the global reinsurance markets stepping up? Where are the global reinsurance markets stepping up to the challenge in relation to defense? And what have we learned over the past 12 months?
Yeah, I think the first one is around ransomware, which I talked about in my opening comments. It's around the data and the sources of data for the purposes of underwriting. And there's some irony for the industry that a large number of cyber insurance proposition underwriting processes tend to be manually or paper-based. So what we're seeing today is an increased utilisation of digitalisation in the underwriting process, where there is a macro review of the risk of the organisation, of the people in the organisation, the controls that they have in place, and then various tools that can be pushed into the organisation's IT systems to understand vulnerabilities that really act as a control to that macro manual underwriting process. So I think that's the big piece that we're certainly seeing take off in North America and Western Europe. The change in the underwriting process and the use of digital tools into the client's IT systems to better understand those vulnerabilities, learn about the risk, promote mitigation, and also better understand how systems are evolving over time. I'm sure, Strawn, you have some views from a direct perspective.
Yeah, I do on that front, actually. I think there is a difficulty in established insurers coming in and pushing in tech-based solutions. So anytime we're trying to change the way underwriting methodology occurs by going, we're going to do something digital or provide some form of tool, it just doesn't come across very well from an old school insurance perspective. You know, we are antiquated in that kind of setup. One thing that I'm going to open up to Pramod shortly was that you need partners who are pushing that boundary of providing cyber risk advisory, cyber risk services, beneficial tools to businesses that can open that door, start developing that trust at a different level, and understanding that it's not purely an insurance solution in the same way that some other insurance products really are. You know, it's not just a indemnification at the end of a breach or a loss or a scenario. It is a hand-holding process. And yesterday I heard a number of things talking about embedded insurance and focusing on consumer. And ultimately that's what we're trying to do. It's a very difficult space to try and do that for. But our solution has been focused on that, and the businesses that are starting to come out in the place from the cyber side, developing into that insurance market, knowing that insurance is the ultimate tool in the safety net of it, is the all-encompassing solution that we're trying to get to. So Pramod, did you have anything you want to add on that point?
No, I think this is very salient, what you just shared. There are groups of people that that are aware and they want to do things proactively. So they are receptive to some of these tools that we talk about, right? And then there are groups of people that are of this mindset that, hey, if I don't know about this problem, my life is okay, right? So they prefer to be ignorant. Ignorance is bliss. And for this group, the awakening is going to be quite painful when it happens, right? So when they go for fundraising or when they go for an audit, they end up, figuring out that, hey, we had a breach which we didn't know about, and now they have to handle it. Now, for the groups that are proactive, this is a growing group. It is not very big, but it's a growing group. For these folks that are trying to get insured or use tools, right? The manifestation of what Justin and yourself just said is coming across as there are certain classes of risk that we want to avoid altogether. And I think new players are trying to look at cyber risk differently from how the existing players are. But let me give you a real life example. So I'm not going to name names, but I think this is for us to learn together, right? What I got to learn is that the kind of risk that some insurer or reinsurer would like to have is, what do you want to guess, actually? It is the kind where it's your hairdresser whose printer is connected to the Wi-Fi. Let's give them cyber insurance. Whereas you have fintech, health tech, e-commerce, e-procurement businesses getting hacked left, right, and center. And you have leaders who are awake and trying to do right by the business and applying for cyber insurance. So cyber insurance itself is a big topic. Within this topic itself, we are seeing folks that are trying to do the right thing, but they are seeing a lot of barriers. And I think we need to do some work together to figure out how to underwrite this kind of risk. And then there are some groups that are going to join this party later when they wake up to the risk that they are sitting on.
I think even to taking a few steps back, even before the companies, the organizations can get their claims, what are some of the challenges, like when companies face a breach, what are some of the challenges during the investigation, the forensics, from your forensics point of view?
So I would say there is one main challenge is access to the data in order to be able to conduct our investigation. There is a different level of maturity for the victim of our organization. Within some large group, we have access to IT teams that know very well their processes, their systems, and it's quite easy actually to obtain the logs that we need in order to conduct our investigation, evidence the attack, understand the causation, and the vector of the compromise. In some SME, it's much more challenging just to get access to those logs. Potentially their system do not record, they don't have a log monitoring system, so it will be challenging to obtain, or they rely on a lot of third-party solution, so you will have to ask those third parties to obtain the logs. So obtaining and having access to the information is quite critical. In some cases, I did investigate a case, a ransomware case, where I was a loss adjuster at that time, and we were here to evidence the loss on behalf of the insurance company. And the insurance said, okay, no, we were victim of a ransomware attack, but everything is fine now. We just wiped out the hard drive and we reinstalled everything, and now it's working properly, but we lost, some money and so on. And I was like, how do you want me to evidence the attack if you just wiped out all the evidence? So there is also a level of evidence safekeeping, and to be here quite early in the process, we are able to manage and to remind them that yes, there is a crisis management aspect, yes, but there is also the preservation of evidence that is important. Another aspect is analyzing large amount of data, which could be challenging. You have technical data and you have tools to analyze technical data, but you need also to talk to people. I give you an example. In order to document, for instance, unauthorized access to an email system, you have to review what we call the nefarious IP connections. Okay, so you check all the IP that connected to the mail platform, and you detect all the weird IP, you know, coming from Angola, coming from crazy countries, and so on. But at the same time, you need also to conduct interviews with senior executives to understand where they traveled during the time of the attack in order to avoid to detect a false positive issue. So yes, collecting the data, analyzing the data, it could be challenging, but in most cases, yeah, the investigation is running well.
Thank you so much. And it sounds like the process is long, and the insurance claim process is going to take some time, and in the midst there could be some reputational damage along the way, right? So I think one question that a lot of us will have in this space is, how do we balance this, you know, putting when is a good defense enough? And how do I balance compliance and with my business needs? So we have only about 5 minutes left, so if we could just share your mind, you know, how do we, you know, address this today? Yeah.
I'll jump in quickly. So, as you can tell from Blackpanda and Pandamatics, we are very closely tied. We are sister companies in that sense. Our focus has been providing the kind of full suite of the solution. So in our mind, it's providing pre-breach services to these businesses, getting them prepared for incidents when they occur. Along that process, also being ready for when they do have a breach, so they know what they're going to do, and then the safety net of the insurance at the end of that. So that's the way we've tried to address it as a collective. We do partner with other tech companies as well to provide that additional security at the start of the process. But from my point of view, it is definitely a combined solution. It can't be answered by just the insurance market or just the cybersecurity space. It's ultimately a hand-in-hand partnership.
Yeah, I can't agree more with that, Sean. To me, it's around the ecosystem of providers that are put together and delivered as a cyber risk management proposition to consumers. And the risk transfer is part of that, but it's also essential to have the assessment tools in place. The training and the scenario management around incident management. And then, of course, the incident management panel. So we've got to think broadly. We just don't think about underwriting premium, insurable event, claim, money in bank account. We've got to think about cyber from a holistic risk management issue, and then think of the risk transfer through insurance or reinsurance as one component of that. So I just can't emphasize enough that ecosystem of risk management service providers in managing cybersecurity for an organization.
Promote you.
I love what you guys said. And just one thing I'd like to add to it is think about it from a continuous perspective. Because it is fair to say that the threat actors have mapped out your IPv4 and IPv6 addresses. They have written scripts that are continuously scanning them and looking out for open ports that they can then attack once they find it. And this is in a way that's automated. So the response from our side has to be continuous compliance, right? So when you have your setup on AWS, GCP, or Azure, put in place tools where you can run scans to see, is your 2FA switched on? Is your S3 bucket authenticated? That kind of thing. Because all you need is for a new engineer to join your team, push out a product, and then you have a breach, which happens a lot, right? So ecosystem approach is very important. I think cybersecurity and insurance companies have to work very closely together. And for companies itself, you need to think of it from a continuous perspective. Just imagine, right? You have to get it right all the time, and the threat actor has to get it right once. So you can't let your guard down. And the unfortunate thing is, even the best intentioned people, they tend to let their guard down sometimes, especially if you're doing once a year audit or once a quarter checks, right? So it has to be continuous. That's my view.
Good perspective. We are right on time, but anyone wants to, share like a burning, speech that you want to share, or perspective? Anyone? No? I think we're good. So I'm not sure if we have time for questions, or do I have to wrap up right now? Okay, so thank you for your time. I think it has been a fantastic discussion, and coming from all's perspective, and no longer we're just talking about what needs to be done, but it has to be done, right? So I hope that this is a good session for you, and we hope to see you again next year.